The desert winds carried sand across the horizon, whispering like voices too old to understand. On the far side of the dunes lay the village of the Veyari, a small alien tribe that survived in silence, building homes of stone and reed beneath the shade of jagged cliffs. They were a quiet people, not known for war or wealth. Yet for reasons Daniel could not explain, he had heard their name spoken in hushed tones at the frontier stations. Traders spoke of them with caution. Soldiers of the Empire frowned when their name was mentioned. Daniel was human, an explorer, not a soldier. He came to the frontier world seeking maps, minerals, and maybe adventure. But more than that, he carried a restless heart. Humanity had only recently entered this region of space. The Empire, a massive power spanning hundreds of systems, tolerated humans but never trusted them. To Daniel, that was fine. He trusted himself more than governments. When he first reached the outskirts of the Veyari village, he noticed the silence. Children did not play outside. The people kept their heads low. Their eyes moved to him with caution and yet not fear of him exactly, fear of something larger. Daniel adjusted his pack, stepping slowly toward their simple gates made from carved wood. A woman in long woven cloth stood near the entrance. Her skin was pale with a faint golden tint that shimmered under sunlight. She looked no older than 30 by human years, but her eyes carried weight, as if she had lived through many storms. "You are human," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but guarded. "I am," Daniel replied. He did not reach for his sidearm. Instead, he raised his empty hands. "I come as a traveler. I only want water and maybe food." The woman studied him for a long moment before nodding toward the well in the center of the village. "Water you may take, food we will see." As Daniel stepped past her, he felt dozens of eyes watching him. Elders with long robes sat in shaded porches whispering. Children peeked from doorways, then darted back inside when he looked. Something was wrong here. He had seen poor villages before, but this was different. These people looked as if they carried invisible chains. At the well, Daniel filled his flask. The water was cool and clean. He looked at the carvings etched into the stone, spirals, symbols, and lines that almost looked like constellations. He ran his fingers over them. They were old, worn by time, but carefully kept. "What do they mean?" Daniel asked, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "They are not for you." The voice came from behind him. He turned and saw an old man, tall and frail, leaning on a carved staff. His face was marked with deep ridges that seemed natural to his species. His eyes were sharp, however, like burning coals. "I didn't mean disrespect," Daniel said quickly. "They look like maps, star maps." The elder's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Daniel thought he had made a mistake, but then the old man sighed. "Maps, yes, but not the kind the Empire allows." Daniel tilted his head. "The Empire doesn't allow maps?" The elder chuckled bitterly. "The Empire allows maps only if they serve power. Truth is dangerous, traveler. More dangerous than weapons." The words stayed with Daniel. He wanted to ask more, but he noticed the villagers growing uneasy. The elder gave him a look, a silent warning, then shuffled away. That night, Daniel was given a small place to sleep. The villagers offered him bread made from desert grain and fruit that tasted sweet but strange. He thanked them, yet he could feel the tension in the air. Families spoke in low voices. No one laughed. Fires burned small, as if too much light might bring danger. From his corner, Daniel watched as a younger woman, perhaps the same one who had first greeted him, approached the elder with urgent whispers. He heard only fragments. "Patrols, soldiers, searching." The elder closed his eyes, his jaw tight. Then he looked across the firelight straight at Daniel. Daniel pretended not to notice, but his mind sharpened. Soldiers, patrols, searching. He had seen Empire troops on other worlds. They carried themselves with arrogance, treating locals as if they were dirt. If they were coming here, it meant the Veyari were hiding something worth fear. He lay awake long after the fires dimmed. The carvings on the well came back to him, Maps that were not allowed. A secret more dangerous than weapons. He thought of the silent stares, the hidden fear, the quiet sadness of children who should have been laughing. At dawn, Daniel rose early and walked outside. The cliffs glowed red under the first sun. He saw the young woman again standing near the edge of the village. She looked toward the desert as if expecting shadows to appear. "Something is coming, isn't it?" Daniel asked. She turned, startled. "Why do you ask?" "Because I've seen fear before," Daniel said. His voice was steady. "And your people wear it like armor. You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of them. The Empire." Her eyes widened, then softened. She did not answer at once. Instead, she said, "Go back to your kind, human. Leave this place. Forget you ever saw us." "I can't," Daniel said simply. "Why?" "Because I've walked too many roads where people were crushed under boots, and I didn't stop. Maybe I should have." The woman looked at him for a long time, her lips pressed together as if fighting words. Finally, she whispered, "If you stay, you will be drawn into it, into the secret." Daniel leaned closer. "Then tell me." "What is it?" She shook her head quickly. "No, it is not mine to give. If you knew, you would be hunted too. The Empire would never let you go." Before Daniel could reply, a sound carried across the desert. The low hum of engines, the unmistakable beat of approaching ships. The woman froze. Daniel turned and saw dust rising on the horizon. The Empire was coming. The Veyari gathered in silence. Elders whispered prayers. Children were pulled into homes. Warriors, few in number and lightly armed, stood near the gates, their faces pale but determined. Daniel stood among them, his heart heavy. He didn't yet know the secret. He didn't yet understand why this tribe lived under such fear. But as the Empire's ships drew closer, one thing became clear. This was not about crime, nor rebellion. This was about silence, about erasing, something the Empire feared too much to let live. And in that moment, Daniel knew he could not walk away. The rumble of engines grew louder as the Empire's ships descended from the sky. They were not sleek crafts built for elegance, but heavy carriers of metal, painted in dark steel with the Empire's crest stamped boldly on their sides. Dust exploded as the ships landed near the cliffs, sending waves of sand across the Veyari village. Daniel stood near the gates with the villagers, his jaw clenched. He had seen Imperial patrols before, but this time there was something colder in their white arrival. The soldiers marched out in perfect rows, their armor black and polished, their visors reflecting the frightened faces before them. At their head walked Commander Veynar, a tall alien with pale silver skin and a voice that carried like thunder. His uniform bore golden marks of rank. He stopped in front of the gates, scanning the villagers with disdain. "People of the Veyari," he said, "you are accused of treason against the Empire." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mothers held their children tighter, elders lowered their eyes. No one spoke. Daniel's fists curled at his sides. He wanted to shout that this was madness, but he forced himself to stay silent, for now. He had to see how this would unfold. Commander Veynar raised a hand. Soldiers fanned out, stepping into the village with weapons drawn. They moved from house to house, pulling open doors, throwing aside belongings. "You have hidden records," Veynar declared. "Forbidden knowledge. Where are they?" The old elder, the one Daniel had spoken to at the well, stepped forward slowly, leaning on his staff. His voice was steady, though his body trembled with age. "We are farmers, Commander. We have no weapons, no armies, only the land and the stars above." "Lies," Veynar barked. "The Empire knows you keep what must not exist. Surrender it, and perhaps mercy will be shown." The elder did not bow. He raised his head high. "We keep only truth. If truth is forbidden, then mercy is already gone." Veynar's expression hardened. He made a sharp gesture. Two soldiers grabbed the elder by the arms. Before anyone could react, They dragged him to the center square and tied him to a wooden post. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He stepped forward, instinctively, but the young woman from before Ceylon gripped his arm tightly. Her eyes pleaded with him. Not now. The elder lifted his chin. His voice, though cracked, rang out clearly. The Empire fears what it cannot control. We are only keepers, not warriors. But you cannot kill knowledge. Vaynar gave a cold nod. A soldier pulled a lever on the post. Ropes tightened around the elder's neck. The crowd cried out. Children wept. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to run forward to cut the rope to fight, but Ceylon's grip held him in place. His mind screamed at him, if you act now, they all die with you. The lever dropped. The elder's body fell still. Silence spread across the village, heavier than the desert night. Vaynar turned back to the people. This is the fate of all who keep forbidden secrets. Bring forth the other elders. Soldiers dragged 3 more village leaders to the square. The crowd trembled. Some begged, some prayed, but none resisted. The elders stood tall, refusing to speak even as the ropes were prepared. Daniel's hands shook. He had seen death before, but this was different. This was not war. This was a message. A performance of cruelty designed to crush hope. One by one, the elders were executed before the eyes of their people. The Empire made sure every villager saw, every child, every mother. It was not just punishment. It was erasure. When the last elder had fallen, Vaynar spoke again. You will give us what you hide, or the rest of you will follow. The villagers sank into silence. No one moved. Their eyes were downcast. Yet in that silence, Daniel sensed something more. Defiance. They would not break, even in the face of death. The commander's gaze swept across them, then landed on Daniel. For the first time, Vaynar seemed to notice the human standing among the tribe. His eyes narrowed. And who is this outsider? Daniel stood straighter. His heart told him to lie, but his pride refused. I'm a traveler, he said. I came for water. Nothing more. Vaynar studied him, then gave a faint smirk. A human. Strangers who wander without loyalty. Do you know what they keep? Daniel shook his head. No. The commander stepped closer, his shadow falling across Daniel. If you discover it, you will report to us. Fail, and you will share their fate. Daniel met his gaze without flinching. I'm not your soldier. The smirk vanished. Vaynar leaned closer. Then you are their shield. And shields break. With that, he gestured to his men. The soldiers moved through the village once more, searching, tearing down walls, scattering belongings into the dust. They found nothing. The secret remained, hidden. Frustrated, Vaynar ordered half the villagers rounded up. Men, women, and even the young were bound in chains. Ceylon was among them. Daniel's chest tightened as he saw her dragged forward, her wrists tied cruelly. Take them to the ships, Vaynar commanded. We will find the truth through pain. Daniel's mind raced. He could not let this happen. Not to Ceylon, not to the tribe. But what could one man do against an army? As the villagers were forced onto the transport, Daniel slipped back into the shadows. His thoughts burned. He had come as a traveler, but now he was witness to something greater. The secret, the one the elders had died for, was worth everything. And if he did nothing, the Empire would crush it, leaving only silence behind. As the ships began to lift with their prisoners, Daniel whispered to himself, Not this time. I won't walk away. His plan was not yet clear. He had no army, no allies, no weapons beyond what he carried in his pack. But he had resolve, and resolve was sometimes enough to start a fire. Far above, the Empire's ships roared into the sky with their captives. Dust settled back over the broken square where the elders had fallen. The village was left in ruin, silence heavier than ever. Daniel stood alone at the gates, fists clenched. He had seen injustice, but this was more. This was a crime against memory itself. And deep inside, Something hardened in him. The Empire thought humans were wanderers without loyalty. They were wrong. He would find the prisoners. He would bring them back. And he would uncover the secret that the Empire feared more than death. The desert night was colder than Daniel expected. The fires of the Veyari village had burned low, and the square stood empty, scarred with ropes and broken posts where the elders had fallen. Daniel walked alone through the silence, his boots crunching on sand and stone. The Empire had taken half the tribe away in chains, leaving behind only the youngest and the weakest. He stopped at the well where he had first seen the carvings. His hand brushed over the worn symbols. He could almost hear the elder's voice again. Truth is more dangerous than weapons. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then it's time someone carried that truth. He had no army, no allies, and yet he refused to let the Empire have the last word. Silan and the others were alive, held on the Empire's ships or in their desert fortress. If he did nothing, they would be tortured, broken, erased. He looked toward the horizon where faint lights flickered, the glow of the fortress not far from the cliffs. A plan began to take shape. Risky, maybe impossible, but still a plan. By dawn, Daniel had prepared what little he had. From his pack, he pulled tools, cables, a small cutting torch, a coil of wire, things most travelers carried for survival. He tied them together, fashioning crude devices. As the sun climbed higher, he moved toward the fortress. The Empire had built it into the rock itself, a heavy block of steel and stone with tall towers that watched over the desert. Soldiers patrolled the walls. Shuttles came and went, their engines roaring like thunder. Daniel studied every detail. He moved from shadow to shadow, careful not to be seen. The Empire thought humans were weak in this part of space. That worked, in his favor. No one would expect a lone human to challenge them. He waited until nightfall. When the moons rose, silver light poured over the fortress walls. Daniel crept closer, hugging the rock face. He reached a drainage tunnel, small but large enough for him to crawl through. Inside, the air was damp and heavy. He moved slowly, listening for echoes of footsteps. At last, he emerged into the lower halls. The walls hummed with the sound of machines, and the floors shook with the rhythm of engines. Daniel pressed himself against the wall as two soldiers walked by. Their voices were harsh. "The prisoners won't last long," one said. "The commander will break them soon." "The humans don't understand," the other replied. "The Veyari hide things no one should know. Better we finish them before the secret spreads." Daniel's chest tightened. He waited until they passed, then slipped down another corridor. He could hear faint voices, cries, whispers, chains rattling. He followed the sound until he reached a heavy door. Peering through a crack, he saw them, the Veyari prisoners. Dozens of them, bound in chains, huddled together. Selen was among them, her eyes closed as if she were whispering strength to herself. Daniel's heart hardened. He pulled out his torch and began cutting the lock. Sparks hissed, but he worked fast, shielding the glow with his coat. At last, the lock gave way. The door creaked open. The prisoners looked up, startled. Selan's eyes widened. "You?" she whispered. "Quiet," Daniel said quickly. "I'm here to get you out." He moved to the chains, working the torch again. One by one, the shackles fell free. The prisoners rubbed their wrists, disbelief on their faces. Selen stepped forward. "Why are you doing this, human? They will kill you." Daniel looked at her, his expression firm. "Because I've seen enough people crushed. Not this time." "Not you." Her eyes softened, but there was no time for more words. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Daniel motioned for silence. "Stay close," he whispered, "and move when I say." They crept through the corridors, Daniel leading them through shadows. Twice they hid as soldiers passed. Once, a guard spotted them, but Daniel lunged forward, striking with a piece of pipe he had picked up. The guard fell silently, and Daniel pulled him into the dark. At last, they reached the drainage tunnel. Daniel motioned for the prisoners to crawl through one by one. The youngest went first, then the elders, then the rest. Selen stayed close, helping those who stumbled. When it was her turn, she hesitated. You cannot fight the Empire alone, Daniel. They will hunt you. Daniel gave a faint grin. Then they'll have to work for it. She shook her head, half in disbelief, half in admiration. Then she crawled into the tunnel. Daniel went last. As he pulled himself out into the cool, desert night, alarm suddenly blared. Light swept across the sands. The escape had been noticed. Run, Daniel shouted. The Veyari scattered across the dunes, but soldiers poured from the fortress, weapons flashing. Daniel grabbed Selin's arm. This way. He led them into the cliffs, weaving between rocks. Blaster fire scorched the stone around them. Daniel ducked, pulling Selin down beside him. This won't hold them forever, she said, her breath quick. Daniel scanned the terrain. The cliffs twisted into a maze of narrow paths and caves. If they could lose the soldiers here, they might survive the night. He turned to the others. Stay low. Follow me. We'll make it. The Veyari obeyed, moving through the winding paths. The Empire soldiers followed, but the cliffs slowed them. Daniel led the tribe deeper into the maze, doubling back, using every trick he knew. He set traps with his cables, causing rocks to fall, blocking passages. At last they reached a hidden cave. Daniel motioned them inside. The tribe huddled together, exhausted but alive. Selin sat near him, her face pale but determined. You saved us, she whispered. But they won't stop. They'll keep coming. Daniel nodded. Then we'll be ready. Selin looked at him, her voice low. You still don't know what we hide, do you? Daniel shook his head. Not yet. Her eyes held his for a long moment. Then she said softly, The elders died to protect it. But now, you deserve to know. From her robe, she pulled a small crystal shard, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Carvings marked its surface, the same symbols Daniel had seen on the well. This is the secret, Selin whispered. A record older than the Empire. It tells of a power that can end their fleets. Not with fire, but with silence. A way to break the energy they control. Daniel stared at it, his mind racing. A weapon? No, a defense. Something the Empire feared more than any army. The weight of it settled on him. This was why the elders had died. Why the soldiers hunted them. He closed his hand over the shard gently. Then we keep it safe. And we use it when the time comes. Selin's eyes shone with resolve. For the first time since he met her, Daniel saw hope flicker in her face. Outside, the desert winds howled. The Empire would come again. But for now, the Veyari were free. And Daniel had chosen his path. He would not only protect them, he would carry their secret. And one human, standing against an empire, was about to change everything. The cave was quiet except for the sound of breathing. The Veyari huddled close together, some resting, others whispering prayers in their native tongue. Daniel sat near the entrance, watching the desert beyond. The moons gave the sand a silver glow, and every shifting shadow made his pulse quicken. He knew the Empire would not give up. Soldiers would return, patrols would comb the cliffs. The question was not if they would come, but when. Behind him, Selin stepped forward, carrying the crystal shard she had shown him before. The glow from its carved surface painted her face with pale light. She lowered herself to sit across from him. You held it as if you understood, she said softly. Do you? Daniel shook his head. Not fully. I saw symbols. I saw patterns. But I don't know what they mean. Selin turned the shard in her hand. The markings caught the light. This is one of many pieces. The elders carried others, hidden across the village and the desert. Together, they form a record, a memory left by our ancestors. Daniel leaned closer. A record of what? Her eyes darkened. Of the Empire's weakness. He frowned. Weakness. They have fleets, weapons, worlds under their control. They crush anyone who stands against them. True, Selin said, her voice steady. But power is not endless. Even mountains fall if struck at the right place. She pressed the shard into his hands. Our ancestors discovered a way to silence the Empire's energy fields. The fleets run on currents drawn from the stars, bound through resonance. These carvings show how to break that resonance. A single signal could silence an entire armada. Daniel's breath caught. You mean, it could stop their ships? Salen nodded. Not destroy them, not kill, but silence. Their fleets would drift powerless, their armies would stand blind. For the first time, the oppressed worlds could rise without fear. Daniel turned the shard over, tracing the carvings with his thumb. The simplicity of the shapes hid their importance. He thought of the elders standing tall as ropes closed around their necks. They had died not for treasure, not for land, but for this truth written in stone. No wonder the Empire fears you, Daniel whispered. Celan's voice trembled. They call it treason, but we call it memory. The elders believed the time was not yet right to reveal it. They thought the galaxy was not ready. But now, you have seen what they do to us. Maybe the time has come. Daniel looked at her, then at the weary faces of the tribe around them. Children sleeping against their mothers, men and women nursing wounds. He clenched the shard in his hand. If this secret can give them hope, Daniel said, then it can't stay hidden. But if we use it too soon, the Empire will wipe you out before others even hear of it. Salen lowered her gaze. That is why we hesitated. That is why the elders chose silence. A long silence stretched between them. Then Salen looked up again, her eyes fierce. But with you it is different. You are not of our blood. The Empire sees you as nothing. They will not expect you to carry the secret. Daniel let out a slow breath. The weight of her words pressed heavily on him. He had come to this world as a traveler, a man with no ties, no great mission. Now he was being asked to hold the hope of a people, and perhaps of many more. Why me? He asked. Because you stood when others bowed, Salen said simply. Because you chose to fight when you could have walked away. That is enough. Daniel stared at the shard again. A human with nothing but a pack and a stubborn heart, now holding the one thing the Empire could not allow. It felt absurd. And yet, it felt right. The next morning, Daniel gathered the tribe. The cave was filled with tired but determined faces. He stood before them, holding the shard high. I know now why the Empire hunts you, he said. I know why your elders died. You carry something more powerful than any weapon, knowledge that can free the galaxy. A murmur rose among them. Some looked fearful, others hopeful. Daniel continued. The Empire will come again. They won't stop until this is gone, until you are gone. But we won't let them. We will protect it. And when the time is right, we will use it. One of the villagers, a man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. We are farmers, not fighters. How can we resist fleets with only stone and bread? Daniel met his eyes. Because fleets fear what they cannot control. You don't need to destroy them. You only need to endure until others see. If one human and one tribe can stand, others will rise too. The scarred man studied him, then nodded slowly. The murmur grew louder, shifting toward resolve. Salen stood at Daniel's side, her voice clear. Our elders are gone, but their memory is not. We will carry it forward. That night, Daniel worked with the tribe to prepare. They set traps along the cliffs, rocks ready to fall, tunnels ready to collapse. They hid symbols in secret places, carving the record onto stones that could be scattered if one piece was lost. Salen sat with Daniel as he studied the shard under firelight. Together, they traced the patterns, trying to understand more. The markings were complex, but Daniel saw connections, resonance, waves, echoes. It reminded him of old Earth studies of sound and frequency. If he could build even a crude device, perhaps they could test it. But their time was short. Before dawn, sentries rushed into the cave. Ships, one cried. The Empire returns. The tribe stirred in fear. Mothers clutched their children. Warriors gripped their simple weapons. Daniel stood, his jaw firm. Then tonight, we show them the Veyari will not break. The Empire descended with fury. More ships than before, their engines shaking the desert. Commander Veynar himself marched at the front, his soldiers armed and ready. Veyari, his voice thundered through the cliffs. You cannot hide. Surrender now, or be erased. In the cave, Selan looked to Daniel. What do we do? Daniel's eyes burned with determination. We don't surrender. We fight with what we have, and we keep the secret safe no matter what. He turned to the tribe. Remember, the Empire wants silence. They want you afraid. Don't give them that. Give them resistance. Give them fire. The tribe's voices rose, not loud, but strong. For the first time, Daniel heard something new in them. Courage. Selan placed her hand over the shard, pressing it against Daniel's chest. If they take us, take this and run. Promise me. Daniel shook his head. No, we run together. Or we stand together. Outside, the Empire soldiers began their advance. The desert trembled with their march. Daniel gripped his pack tighter. He was only one human, but now he carried the weight of a people and the spark of a rebellion. The time for hiding was over. The desert shook under the march of the Empire soldiers. Dust rose in thick clouds as the fortress gates opened, releasing columns of troops in black armor. Overhead, the sky roared with patrol ships circling like vultures. Commander Veynar's voice echoed from the loudspeakers fixed to their vehicles. People of the Veyari, he thundered, this is your last chance. Surrender what you hide. Give us the shard, or be erased from the sands of history. Inside the cave, the tribe gathered close. Their fear was heavy, but now it was tempered with defiance. Selan stood near Daniel, her face pale but resolute. The shard glowed faintly in her hands as if carrying the spirit of the elders who had died for it. Daniel looked at them all, the mothers, the elders, the children too young to understand, and he felt something rise within him. He had not come to this world to be a savior. He had come as a traveler, a man with no place in the Empire's order. Yet here he stood, the only shield between a tribe and annihilation. He tightened his fists. They think we're weak, he said, his voice firm. But weakness is what they fear most, because weakness that refuses to break becomes strength. The tribe listened in silence. Some nodded, some whispered prayers. Others simply looked at him with wide eyes, as if waiting for a miracle. Daniel turned to Selan. Stay with them. Protect the shard. No matter what happens, don't let it fall into their hands. Her eyes widened. And you? Daniel gave a thin smile. I'll keep them busy. When the first wave of soldiers reached the cliffs, they found their path blocked. Stones crashed down from above, triggered by hidden cables Daniel had set the night before. Soldiers scattered as dust filled the air. The Veyari warriors, armed with nothing more than slings and sharpened spears, struck from the shadows. Daniel was at the front, darting between rocks. He used every trick his travels had taught him. He cut ropes to release collapsing walls of stone. He hurled sand into visors, blinding soldiers. He set fire to dry brush, filling the air with smoke. The Empire expected a broken people, not resistance. For a moment, chaos spread through their ranks, but Commander Veynar was not a fool. His voice roared above the confusion. Tighten ranks. Push forward, the human is with them, bring him to me alive. Daniel ducked behind a boulder as blasts of energy struck the stone. Heat scorched his face, he gritted his teeth. So they know it's me, he muttered. Good, let them chase me. He darted out again, drawing fire away from the tribe. Soldiers turned their weapons toward him, just as he wanted. He ran through narrow passages, leading them deeper into the maze of cliffs. Behind him, echoes of shouts and blaster fire filled the air. In the cave, Selan held the shard tightly. She could hear the battle outside. The crash of stones, the cries of men, the roar of engines. Every moment felt like the edge of a knife. An elder beside her whispered, He cannot hold them forever. Selan's eyes burned with tears, but her voice was steady. Then we must hold ourselves. The elders gave their lives for this secret. We cannot let it die here. She turned to the others. Prepare to move. When Daniel returns, we will not stay. The desert is wide, and the stars are waiting. The tribe gathered what little they had. Mothers wrapped children in cloaks. Warriors readied their spears. Their fear was still present, but so was a spark of courage that had been missing before. Daniel's lungs burned as he sprinted through the rocks. Soldiers pursued him, their weapons flashing in the night. He skidded to a stop near a narrow ravine and pulled a wire from his pack. Quickly, he tied it between two pillars of stone. As the first soldiers charged after him, their boots caught the wire. They fell hard, their weapons clattering to the ground. Daniel lunged, striking one with the butt of a stolen rifle, then rolling into cover. The others stumbled, shouting. Daniel opened fire, not with skill, but with desperation. Shots cracked through the air, soldiers fell, but more kept coming. Too many. Daniel ducked behind a rock, his breath ragged, his stolen rifle overheated, warning lights flashing. He knew he couldn't last much longer. Then he looked up and saw something in the sky. The patrol ships circling above. Engines glowing. Their humming steady. And he remembered the shard, the resonance, the silence. His mind raced. If this shard holds the key to breaking their fleets, maybe it can do more. Maybe it can stop them here. He sprinted back toward the cave. Soldiers followed, their numbers growing, but Daniel didn't care. He needed the shard. He slid into the cave, his chest heaving. Selan, he gasped. The shard. Give it to me, she hesitated. Daniel, trust me, he shouted. Her hands trembled as she placed the glowing shard into his palm. Daniel held it against the barrel of the overheated rifle. He wasn't sure if it would work, but he remembered the patterns, the waves, the resonance. He adjusted the rifle's frequency controls, aligning them with the shard's carvings. The weapon hummed, then sang with a strange vibration. The air shimmered. Daniel raised it toward the sky and fired. A beam of light shot upward, not bright, but resonant. It pulsed like a ripple through water, invisible yet powerful. The patrol ships above suddenly faltered. Their engines sputtered. Lights flickered. One by one, they went silent, drifting like dead metal across the stars. Gasps filled the cave. Selan's eyes widened. You silenced them. Daniel lowered the weapon, his hands shaking. Not for long, but long enough. Outside, soldiers stared upward in confusion. Their communication devices sparked, their weapons flickered. The hum of their energy packs died. Panic rippled through their ranks. The Veyari warriors seized the moment. With spears and stones, they charged from the cliffs. Cries rang out as the Empire soldiers scattered, no longer united by their technology. Daniel stepped forward, shouting with all the strength in his chest. This is what you fear. You are not gods. You are not endless. You can be broken. The soldiers faltered. Some fled. Others fought desperately, but without power, their armor and weapons were little more than heavy shells. Commander Vaynar roared in fury, drawing a blade of steel. He marched toward Daniel. You dare defy the Empire? One human against 1,000 worlds? Daniel tightened his grip on the shard-powered weapon. His voice was steady. Not one human, one truth. And truth spreads faster than fear. Bloup, Commander lunged. Daniel fired again. The resonance struck the blade, shattering it into fragments. Vaynar stumbled, his eyes wide in shock. Before he could recover, Veyari warriors surged forward, forcing him back. The commander cursed, retreating into the dust with his scattered men. Silence followed. The desert was littered with broken weapons and abandoned armor. The Empire had been driven back, not destroyed, but humiliated. For the first time, the Veyari had stood and not fallen. Daniel lowered the weapon, his body trembling. Selan rushed to his side, steadying him. Her eyes shone. With awe, you did it. No, Daniel said, his voice rough. We did it. Your people, your memory, your courage. The tribe gathered around, their fear replaced with wonder. For the first time in generations, hope flickered in their eyes. Celan raised the shard, high, her voice ringing out. The elders are not gone, their truth lives, and with this human we carry it forward. Cheers echoed through the cliffs. The sound carried across the desert, louder than the Empire's engines had ever been. That night, under the starlit sky, the Veyari began their journey. They left the cave, moving quietly but proudly, carrying the shard and the memory of their elders. Daniel walked among them, no longer an outsider but one of them. He looked at the sky, where the Empire's ships drifted powerless. He knew they would return, stronger than before. The fight was not over, it was only beginning, but for the first time the galaxy had seen that the Empire could bleed, not through weapons of destruction, but through knowledge, through truth, and at the center of it all stood one human, a traveler who had chosen not to walk away. Daniel tightened his pack and walked forward into the desert night. He was not just carrying a shard, he was carrying the spark of rebellion, and sparks once lit could set the stars aflame.